Good morning, dear students. Let's begin our social science class. It's my video number 2 in continuation with Ncert, History, French Revolution. Today, our contents will be the outbreak of revolution. This we will be discussing today, full topic. Now, students, as I explained already in yesterday, the three main estates in which the people were divided of France, and the third estate was forced to pay tithe and tally, as well as the revolution caused many of the underprivileged section depressions. Also, there were some philosophers like Rousseau and Mirabeau and Jacques, and these all in their books they have written many inspiring things by which the middle class people were inspired too. Now today we will see that how the revolution outbreak in France. Louis XVI had to increase taxes for reasons that we have already learned in our previous section. How do you think he could have gone about doing this? In France of the old regime, the monarch did not have the power to impose tax according to his will alone. Now in the old regime, I already said before the revolution time, that time monarch was unable to impose his own powers. He had to call a meeting of Estates General, which would then pass his proposals for new taxes. The Estates General was a political body to which three estates sent their representatives. Now this is a 1 mark question you need to write in your copy, that what is Estate General. So it was a political body in which the three representatives of the three estates were given. Not three representatives, but the three estate representatives were there. However, monarch alone could decide when to call a meeting of his body. Now he was not given a right to form or draft any of the law, but he was given a right to call a meeting according to his time convenience. The last time it was done in 1614. Now we will see in 1789. So on 5 May 1789, Louis XVI called together an assembly of the Estates General to pass proposals for the new taxes. A resplendent hall in Versailles was prepared to host the delegates. The first and second estates sent 300 representatives each, who were seated in rows facing each other on the two sides. Now you can see a long table was arranged in which the 300 representatives of both of the estates were sitting in opposite to each other, while the 600 members of the third estate, which comprised the majority, had to stand at back. The third estate was represented by its more prosperous and educated members. Peasants, artisans and women were denied entry to the assembly. Now you can see the condition of France. The peasants, artisans were not allowed, and women were also not allowed. However, their grievances and demands were listed in some 40,000 letters, now which the representative of third estates had brought along with them to this national assembly. Now you can see third estates. Here only you can see the injustice done among to the third estates, that the peasants, artisans and women were also not allowed to come, and their problems you can see was about in 40,000 letters, as well as they were allowed to stand at back, and they were even not allowed to sit over there. Now let me discuss first about the procedure of the voting. So here all the three estates have a single vote, means one estate had one vote. So in this way, whatever the king ordered or drafted any law, there was a voting done. So now we can see over here, children, first estate and second estate will be voting, as it is always in their favor. So 2 votes already the France get, and the third estate will never vote. So 1 vote will France will not get, but 2 is in majority, so it will win, and hence the law will be implied. In the other words, it is forcibly implied on the third estate. So now let's see over here. Voting in Estate General in the past had been conducting according to principle that each estate had 1 vote. This time too, Louis XVI was determined to continue the same practice, but members of the third estate demanded that voting now be conducted by the assembly as a whole, where each member would have 1 vote. Now this was their demand, that every member of any estate should have 1 vote. This was one of the democratic principles put forward by philosophers like Rousseau in his book The Social Contract. So third estate people read that book and they were inspired by this. because now as 600 votes we are getting, and along with that some of the people of second estate or first estate would also vote because they are in the favor of these people. As we are reading further, we will come to know Mirabeau and many other people like that who were actually belonging from first and second estate. They supported third estate, so they will also vote in the favor of third estate, and in this way the majority will already form. But over here, King Louis XVI rejected it. Now see, when the king rejected the proposal, members of third estate walked out of the assembly in protest. Now this whole paragraph will be a question and you have to write it in your copies and not more than 3 points, and the question form will be, why did three estates move out of protest? And in the above paragraph the question will be that who represented National Assembly of 5 May 1789. Now let's see the next paragraph. Here every paragraph forms a particular question. Now this paragraph we will be going to see that what was the tennis court oath and what was the contribution of Mirabeau and Abbasi in the French Revolution. The representatives of the third estate viewed themselves as spokesmen for the whole French nation. Now we saw that they went out from the National Assembly at that time where the meeting was held. Now they also found themselves as they were representing the whole French nation, their grievances, their problems. On 20 June they assembled in the hall of indoor tennis court in ground of Versailles. So they went to Versailles, that was a ground of tennis court over there. They went over there, they declared themselves a national assembly and swore not to disperse till they had drafted a constitution for France that would limit the powers of monarch. So they had to do something that would limit the power of monarch, and they swore that they would not move from there till they have drafted the constitution which would limit or extinct the powers of monarch. They were led by Mirabeau and Abbasi. Now you can see over here, you need to underline this also. It is a 1 mark question, the contribution of both people. Mirabeau was born in noble family, means that is a second estate, but was convinced of the need to do away with the society of feudal privilege. Now feudal privilege refers to the rights which are given to only the special categorized people that are of first and second estate based on the birth. Now from birth only they were having certain rights which third estate people did not have. These were feudal privileges, and Mirabeau was against that. He brought out a journal and also delivered powerful speeches to the crowds that were assembled at the Versailles. So I already told you that the representative of the third estate went to Versailles, the ground of there in the tennis court oath, and they decided to draft a constitution. So Mirabeau was also delivered a powerful speech over there. Now you can see how was the tennis court oath. Now it was a preparatory sketch for a large painting by Jacques Louis David. The painting was intended to be hung in the National Assembly because everyone over here was patriotic and they wanted their own constitution. So this was a painting that was to be hung at National Assembly, which consisted of all the three estates. Abbasi, originally a priest, wrote an influential pamphlet called What is a Third Estate? So actually he was also in support of the third estate. While the National Assembly was busy at Versailles drafting a constitution, the rest of France seethed with turmoil. Now it is again very important question. You have to mark this whole paragraph as a question. The two paragraphs which are coming in further, this and the next paragraph will be forming what are the conditions of France when third estate people were busy in drafting a constitution. So these people seethed with turmoil. A severe winter had meant a bad harvest. The price of bread rose. Often bakers exploited the situation and hoarded supplies. After spending hours in long queues at the bakery, crowd of angry women stormed into the shops, and at the same time the king ordered troops to move into the Paris. And on July 14 that we saw in the beginning of the chapter, agitated crowds stormed and destroyed the Bastille. In the countryside, rumor spread from village to village that lords of manor, we have already seen students that what was manor, and now we are also discussing that it was an estate which was consisting of lord's lands and his mansion, had hired the bands of brigands who were on their way to destroy the ripe crops. Now the crops which peasants had grown of third estate, they were to destroy those crops. Caught in a frenzy of fear, peasants in several districts seized hoes and pitchforks, these were actually the arms, and attacked Chetak or Chetu, which we call is a castle or a stately residence which belonged to king or a nobleman. They looted, hoarded grain and burnt down documents containing the records of manorial dues. Now whatever dues that were left by the third, which were imposed on the third estate, people burnt them all. A large number of nobles fled from their homes, many of them migrating to the neighboring countries. Faced with the power of his revolting subjects, Louis XVI finally accorded recognition to the National Assembly and accepted the principle that his powers would from now on be checked by the Constitution. Now, as we all know that the French Revolution was already an outbreak, so that's why now Louis XVI was fearful, and that's why he said that now the Constitution has a right to check his powers. On the night of 4 August 1789, the Assembly passed a decree abolishing the feudal system of obligations and taxes. Now, the feudal system was I told you, the system which was rights were given on the basis of birth, as well as they had a right to collect the taxes, but now this was abolished completely. Tithes were abolished and land owned by church were confiscated. Now, the church people who owned the land, these were distributed among all the people. As a result, the government acquired assets worth at least 2 billion livres. Now they had got 2 billion livres, who the third estate people who formed their own government. France becomes a constitutional monarchy. Now this is another important topic for the outbreak of revolution. Afterwards we see that it was a constitutional monarchy. The National Assembly completed the draft of constitution in 1791. Now you can see it took nearly 2 years. As we saw over here, it was in 1789 and then it began drafting in constitution in 1791, means nearly 2 years. Its main object was to limit the powers of monarch. These powers, instead of being concentrated in the hands of one person, were now separated and assigned to different institutions that were legislature, executive, judiciary, that we see till now in our countries also. This made France a constitutional monarchy. Now you can see this figure, how it explains the new political system worked. You can see over here that active citizens and passive citizens. Now the country was divided into two. Active citizens entitled to vote, means about 4 million out of 28 million people were active citizens, whereas passive citizens do not have any voting rights, and these were about 3 million men and all women, children and youth below 25. Now these active citizens voted the electors, these were nearly 50,000, and these electors voted National Assembly. This was about 745 members. National Assembly controlled ministers. Now active citizens voted two people. First was electors, which further voted the legislature of the National Assembly, and the second one was the judge, which comprised of judiciary. Now judiciary is that power of constitution which looks after the justice, that everyone has a equal right. Now it checks on it. Now you can see the National Assembly controlled the king, and king in turn vote the National Assembly. So National Assembly had two rights. First it was to control king, and second it was to control ministers. The National Assembly comprised of 745 members. Now this was all about. Now you can see, children, over here also the French Revolution did not stop, because the passive citizens, under passive citizens, women were categorized, means women were not given a right to vote. That was also another cause of French Revolution. The Constitution of 1791 vested the power to make laws in National Assembly, which was indirectly elected. That is, citizens voted for a group of electors who in turn choose the assembly. Not all citizens, however, had a right to vote. Only men above 25 years of age who paid taxes equal to at least 3 days of laborer's wage. Now you can see over here, this is an important 1-mark question. You underline it, that laborer's wage. It was now the 3 days laborer wage. This was equal to the tax which was to be paid by these people. And these people, if they are above 25 years and they have paid the taxes, then only they have a right to vote. They were entitled to vote. The remaining men and all women were classified as passive citizens. To qualify as an elector and then as a member of assembly, a man had to belong to highest bracket of taxpayers, means they need to pay the tax in order to vote and to become the active citizen. Now this itself forms a 3-mark question of distinguishing between the active citizens and passive citizens and categorize them on the basis of tax. Now you can see over here this figure 8, the Declaration of Right of Man and Citizen, painted by the artist Lee Barbier in 1790. Now it is in French language. Actually here all the rights of man that were to be published were published in this. The figure on the right represents the France. The figure on the left symbolizes the law. Now on the right one figure we see this one is France, and on the left one was the law mean. Okay. The constitution began with the Declaration of Rights of Men and Citizens. Rights such as right to life, freedom of speech, freedom of opinion, equality before the law were established as natural and inalienable rights. That is, they belong to each human being by birth and could not be taken away by them. It was the duty of state to protect each citizen's natural rights. So these were all the rights. Now let's discuss an important case. We will see here some political symbols. The majority of men and women in 18th century could not read and write, so images and symbols were frequently used instead of printed words to communicate important ideas. The painting by Lee Barbier uses many such symbols to convey the content of Declaration of the Rights. Let us see the symbols. Now for the people who were illiterate and who were unable to read and write, for them these symbols were made, and these symbols had some meaning. For example, the broken chain. So chains were used to fetter slaves. A broken chain stands for the act of becoming free, means now you are no longer in slave of someone else. The bundle of rods or faces. One rod can easily be broken, but not an entire bundle, means that the strength lies in unity. Now you can see how interesting were these figures, and these were easily explainable, and they actually explained some important or deep moral meaning to every people over there. The eye within the triangle radiating light. Now what is the meaning? The all-seeing eye stand for knowledge. The rays of sun will drive away the cloud of ignorance. Means if you are literate, you will not have any fear in life, and you will not be disappointed by people, and you will gain knowledge. That is, that you will never be ignored by people. The next is the sceptre or scepter. This is a symbol of royal power. The next is snake biting its tail to form a ring. Now this symbol of eternity, that is, a ring has neither beginning nor an end. Then a red Phrygian cap, that is a cap worn by slave upon becoming free. Now this was all worn by slave people who were earlier slave, but now they were free, so they wore these caps. Blue, white, red, the national colors of France. The winged woman, this means the personification of the law, means the law was now personified, each and every people in the favor of them the law was made. And this was actually a personification which we read in English, that the law was made some people, that is some fairy, that is a winged woman or an angel. So law was angel according to for the people. The law tablet, the law is the same for all and all are equal before it. So these things today we have studied children, and we have completed with our topic the outbreak of revolution. We came to know that what was the result of outbreak of revolution, how did it took place, and afterwards what things and precautions were taken in order to stop the monarchical domination on the France. That's all for the day. Thank you and have a nice day.